Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Seahawks, the podcast for fans like you. I'm your host, Robert Smith, along with my co-host, Adam Stellman. Today, we'll be discussing our Week 11 matchup at the Los Angeles Rams. Adam, let's talk Seahawks.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. But first, man, welcome back to the land of the living. I got to tell you, running solo or at least taking over hosting duties last week, I do not envy your job, sir. I am happy to be the color man from here on out. Um, yeah, look, I mean, coming off of a must-have win against the Commanders at home, and we now travel down to SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles for a rematch of Week 1. This I've had circled on my calendar. I don't know about you, probably since Week 1, because we got to come out and take this one from the Rams. I don't know that this is a must-win game for the Seahawks. Certainly not statistically or numerically to stay in the playoff hunt, but I think this is a must-win for us. We've got to go down there. We've got to show that we've learned our lessons from the first week, that we continue to correct things, even though we'll get in and talk about some of the things that weren't fixed that we still saw last week. But yeah, I think this is a must-win game for the Seahawks. Not just in terms of the season, but I think for morale and to prove that this team is still a legit contender.
I'm right there with you. As far as percentages go and making the playoffs, we're fine if they end up taking a loss in this game. I don't want to see it. It means we don't have a chance at the division. So it's only a wild card spot available. Those are not scenarios that I want for us. But yeah, this definitely feels like a must win.
It does.
We've had first of all, we had that horrible loss in Baltimore, an embarrassing loss. And then we had a little bit of a better game, but there was still a lot of sloppy stuff going on there with the Commanders. So you're right. This is a get right game before we sort of go into this just brutal 4 games. So yeah, but yeah, no, I am very thankful to be back. This sickness that I thought was going to be a 24-hour thing turned into 5 days. It was rough. But I am happy to be here. I will be the host and play-by-play, basically, as I try to navigate connecting our topics with your tangents as our color commentator here on the show.
Well, you do it so well. So I figure, you're an old hand at this by now. We've been doing this for a while.
I do enjoy a good transition. Speaking of which, we do have some news from around the league. Little tidbit, we don't say everything, but something of note. We talked about the Raiders cleaning house a few weeks ago, firing everybody. I thought that was a little early in the season to do it, but that's sort of the Raider way. And they showed that yet again. Well, the Bills took a bad loss, I believe, to those Raiders, right?
No, it was actually the Denver Broncos, funny enough.
You're right. The Broncos, another team we like to talk about here on the podcast.
We do.
So they took a bad loss. And then they said, you know what? We have the answer. We're just going to go ahead and fire our offensive coordinator. So the Bills went out and they fired Ken Dorsey, have an interim offensive coordinator for the rest of the season. I don't think that's the answer. I think that was an emotional overreaction, and their season will suffer because of it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I was shocked by this firing. If you go back and watch any of the games this season, but especially the Denver game, the offense wasn't the issue. I mean, they had the lead in the fourth quarter with that after a run-in touchdown by Josh Allen. Yes, there have been some miscues on offense this year, and certainly I don't think they're putting up the numbers they were hoping to put up. But it's not the offense is not the reason that they're not in games. I think their defense is pretty porous, especially on the wings. I mean, everybody outside Tre'Davious White is just not pulling their own there. I was again just shocked by this fire because I do not see Ken Dorsey as the reason that the Bills are not contending this year.
No, not at all. And that interim offensive coordinator, since it escaped my mind, is Joe Brady. Just want to give him credit. He's out there doing the job. Might as well get his name out there.
Are you sure that's not from Madden? That sounds like a Madden offensive coordinator.
That sounds like
that
a Madden
sounds made up
coordinator. Yeah. Got a little bit of team news. maybe not surrounding the current team, but team news nonetheless. A former Seahawk out
It's a
there.
Seahawk, always a Seahawk.
Exactly. Former first round draft pick by the Seahawks, outside linebacker, defensive end Bruce Irvin, brought into the Detroit Lions team on the practice squad. They're hoping that he can show him that he still got, what he showed us. He played well for us last year here in Seattle. So he's still got a little bit left in the tank. They're hoping he has enough to help them on their playoff push. So what I have to say about that is good luck, Bruce Irvin. Get out there and make people pay. Just don't make the Seahawks pay, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, I mean, we've already played the Lions, so we're not going to have to see Bruce Irvin on the field. I'm interested. I will do some research after this. We do this pod and kind of go back and see what the connection is there, because this does seem kind of an out of the box signing for Detroit. They've had a pretty big youth movement since Dan Campbell took over, and so this is an interesting signing. I mean, maybe this is another move to kind of bring somebody in that can play that mentorship role with some of their young pass rushers. But it's definitely an interesting move to see, because even though, yes, I think Bruce Irvin can still play and can still contribute on the field, that didn't seem like a thing of need for Detroit at this time. So an interesting move. But yeah, congratulations to Bruce. Always glad to see the man still working.
Absolutely. One of my favorite players to watch, just when he gets out there and is going, is fantastic. All right, let's move on to transactions, because the Seahawks are known to make a lot of transactions during a week, and this was not one of those weeks. So
waiting for that.
We had a couple moves on the practice squad, which I'm not going to relay. But the big one, the big exciting news, something that we've all been waiting for, is that they designated right tackle Abe Lucas to return from injured reserve, kicking off his 21-day you can practice with the team activation window. And he practiced with the team all week. I know some of those days were limited. Obviously, you want to ease a guy back in. There was some talk out there about him even being able to play and suit up for this game. So, I mean, that was huge news. I think they're making the right choice. They've already ruled him out of this game. He's not on the 53. He has not been officially activated yet. So he's not out. But yeah, they said he's not going to play, but I think it's great. This is one step closer to him being back and us solidifying that offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any downside to your right tackle, your starting right tackle getting healthy for the especially not this second half of a season. I've said it a million times, but it was kind of a murderer's row of teams coming up for us. There's a 4-week stretch where we are just playing the cream of the crop. I believe the two teams with the best record in the NFC, which are the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles, and then of course our own in-division rivals, the 49ers. We're going to see them twice in the next 5 weeks. So yeah, go ahead and rest Abe Lucas for this, because we're going to need him for the next 4 games.
No, 100%. All right, moving on to the injury report. We have game day designations already, because we're recording this late Friday night or the wee hours of the morning on Saturday, depending on which time zone you're in. We have one player ruled out, and that is wide receiver Derek Young. He re-injured an abdominal injury. So hopefully this is something that, will heal up. He can get back in. I really like him in this receiving core more than I like this receiving core with D. Eskridge. And I hate to say it because it sounds like I'm giving up on a player, but I just like what Derek Young brings to the table in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, look, we've given Trey, or sorry, not Trey. Now I'm forgetting his name. You just said it. The receiver that's ahead of him on the depth chart. Plenty of opportunities. He really hasn't made that much of an impact. And we've seen Derek Young go out there, this undrafted guy that every time he's on the field, he will make at least one impactful play a game. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Derek Young brings a great skill set that is a little bit different than we have in this receiving core, and I'm hoping he gets back before the end of the season.
Yep, and he was drafted by the Seahawks in the 7th round.
Sorry.
Yep. We had Bo Melton was our first 7th-round pick,
There you go.
and then
Two
Tariq Young was
receivers.
our second one. Yep.
I do remember that now.
All right. So moving on in the injury report, we had 4 players listed as questionable. One of them was Abe Lucas, but we know he's not activated yet. So if they go ahead on Saturday and he just has a miraculous I'm ready to play recovery, then they could activate him Saturday and he's listed as questionable. That's not going to happen. And it shouldn't happen, even if that happens and has this miraculous recovery. Like, just let him sit this week and get ready for this hard stretch of games coming up. But the other
that's
players
a
listed,
position that. Oh, I was sorry. I was going to say that's definitely a position where we have the depth to absorb that. So,
yeah, the other players who are listed as questionable, we have wide receiver Tyler Lockett. In my opinion, probably one of the most critical of these 3. Safety Jamal Adams and corner Trey Brown. All 3 players who are heavy contributors to this team.
Yeah.
Right. Lockett is all reliable. He's our Mr. Third Down. He's the toe tap in the back of the end zone touchdown guy. He is Mr. Calm, cool, collected leader in that wide receiver room. Jamal Adams, we've seen what he can bring to the table. But then again, this team has experience playing without him. And Trey Brown, who is our
big play Trey.
Big play Trey. I mean, he is playing his butt off this year. And he comes in on the outside when Witherspoon kicks inside to nickel. So big contributors, all 3 of these guys. I hope all 3 of them are ready to go. I'd say if one wasn't and was inactive for this game, it would probably be Tyler Lockett, who was unable to practice at least 3 days this week. And that's not really a trend I like. Hopefully that was, you're smart, you're savvy, you know what we're doing, get rest sort of days, not you're too injured to be able to practice.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that.
Adam, how are the Rams looking regarding their injury report?
Unfortunately, very, very healthy. The Rams are looking at having one guy listed on their or has a designation or game day status, and that's starting cornerback Kobe Durant. He's their left starting cornerback. He has been dealing with a shoulder injury and was limited all week, so he's listed as questionable for the game. But other than that, this is a very healthy Rams team that we are facing. And they have an addition. Well, they've had it for a few weeks now, but an addition that we didn't see in week 1, and that is the return of wide receiver Cooper Kupp.
Yes, and that's actually pretty scary in my mind. We didn't face, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Aaron Donald played in that week 1
He did not
matchup. And then Cooper Kupp was also out. And so we were thinking, oh, great, it's at home in Seattle. We don't have to face Cooper Kupp or Aaron Donald. Like gravy, right? We got 2 of their biggest players, one on offense, one on defense. And then Seahawks came out and played a decent first half and then laid a giant egg in the second half.
Rotten egg.
Rotten egg. Yeah, I'm not looking for a repeat, but
no.
All right. Every week, Adam and I sit down. We come up with our 5 keys for success. And I know we kind of joked a little bit for week 10. We brought it back to basics for the Seahawks. You know, we had very general, very broad keys to success. And we're not going to do that this week, right? We need things that we can go and look at and specific type of things. So, number 1, our first key to success is own the slot.
Yeah, I mean, pretty self-explanatory. We do, as we just mentioned, Cooper Kupp is back. This is a guy who does most of his damage out of that slot receiver position. And we didn't see him week 1, but the 2 receivers that they had on the field, the 2 starters, more than made up for the slack. Both of their starting wideouts and 2 receiver sets got over 100 yards during the game. One of those was a rookie. I think a rookie that we love to talk about and mention several times in the podcast leading up to the draft. That's Puka Nacua out of BYU. The man is coming to this league and set it on fire. I believe he's leading all rookies in total catches or in catches and total yards right now. So he's still a factor, but right now it's just about one thing, and that is when they come out and Cooper Cup is in that slot, we got to stop them.
Yeah, 100%. Little note on Puka Nakua. First of all, we both loved him going into the draft. We were both pounding the table for the Seahawks to grab him, even though they didn't need another wide receiver, especially after getting JSN in the first round. But we could see the talent there. I mean, there were a lot of things going into it. And then we gave him his due after that week 1 beatdown where he really showed the NFL that he was here to compete. But Puka Nakua is just shy of 70 yards away from breaking Cooper Kupp's Rams rookie receiving record.
Wow.
Yeah, and anytime you can pass Cooper Kupp on a records board, I mean, that's pretty impressive. So
agreed.
Hopefully he waits another week to get that record. That doesn't happen here against the Seahawks.
That's what I was just thinking.
But yeah, with both of these players back, Kupp and Nakua coming into play, I don't want to see a single Witherspoon blitz. We need that man in coverage. I don't need him creeping up from the slot, and everybody wants to see a corner blitz. I mean, it's fun. You got the fast guys flying in there. No, let's not see blitz Jamal Adams. Let Julian Love come in and blitz from the other slot. Totally fine. Let Witherspoon in coverage because we're going to need him to lock down these elite slot receivers that the Rams have.
Yeah. I'll say this. I'd like, can we see 1 or 2 Devin Witherspoon blitz packages in the game? Okay. But not when either one of those guys are lined up in the slot with him. If you want to do it when it's somebody else, fine. Go ahead and blitz as long as those 2 guys are covered somewhere on the outside. But yeah, I do not want to pull our best cover guy away from either one of them on the off chance that we get to the quarterback before he gets the ball out, which is not, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but which is not a small ask in this case.
No. So once again, I want to keep it something that we can look back on and look at a metric to see if the Seahawks were able to meet this key. So I'm going to put max receptions combined between Kupp and Nakua. I want 12 or less. Personally, I'd like to see it under 10, but if we can keep Kupp and Nakua under 12 combined receptions, I think this team will really have, this defense will have stepped up their coverage game and forced the Rams to look elsewhere than the slot.
Yeah, let's hope you're right and the Seahawks can pull that out. That is another tall ask, my friend. Keeping Cooper Kupp under was I guess they'll have 6 or fewer receptions in that case. Wow.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I said combined between the 2 of them. All right, our second key to success is just run D. And of course, Adam throws his little pun up in there. And for those of you in the audio world who are not watching on YouTube, first of all, thank you for listening to the podcast. Adam threw a little MC at the end of the D, so it says Run DMC.
Well, I got to show my age at least once a podcast, so there's my
exactly. All right, so run defense started out the season strong. In fact, I want to say week 3 or 4 or going into the bye, the Seahawks had the number 1 run defense. Like we were just hitting it hard coming out of the gate this season. And then after the bye, things sort of fell apart in that arena. In fact, Seahawks are dead last in the NFL over the last 3 weeks in run defense. They are allowing 173.7 yards per game over the last 3 games. And that sickens me, especially as a defensive coach, right? I look at defense. That's what I watch. That's what I love to just break down and get into. And there is no way that you can have success giving up 173 yards on the ground every single game. We've done that the past 3 weeks on average. I'm surprised we didn't lose more than one of those games.
Me too. I mean, yeah, 170 yards. That I mean, that is a monster running stat for any team. 170 yards in a game. That's insane. And to average that after over 3 weeks, yeah, this is something we got to get back to bottling up. Like you said, we were what first to last in the matter of 5 weeks. Not something you're used to seeing from Pete Carroll defense. I mean, Pete Carroll emphasizes the run both in offense and defense. I gotta think that this has been a point of emphasis, especially uh, since the Ravens game, where I think they went over 300 yards on the ground. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's trending in the right direction. Certainly, Washington didn't get close to that metric, but we know Sean McVay likes to run the ball. They like to create motion before the snap and find those running lanes for their guys. This is definitely going to be assignment number. Well, I guess in this case, assignment number 2 for the Seahawks defense for sure.
Well, and sure, Washington didn't put up huge rushing numbers, but their running backs still hurt the Seahawks. In
Oh, yeah.
fact, the Seahawks, I believe, are giving up the 5th most points in fantasy to running backs in the league. So I hate to say it, but if you're starting a Rams running back, uh, or you have a Rams running back on your fantasy team, it might be a good idea to start them. Though I hope you get no points.
Yeah, I'm playing Daryl Henderson in one of my leagues, so I'm certainly right there with you. I hope we find a way to stop the run.
All right. And my metric for this is I want a repeat of the week 1 performance. So let's get right on defense and let's hold this rushing attack to less than 100 total rushing yards for the game.
Yeah, I'm not quite on board 100% with that, just because we also gave up three touchdowns on the ground to the Rams in Week 1. So I don't want a complete repeat performance. I would really like the performance we had inside the 20s. That would be great. I think we held them to under 3 yards a carry. Yeah, less than 100 total yards, and they had 92 for the game. So yeah, if we can repeat that, I think we held them to 2.3 yards a carry in Week 1. Yeah, if we can have a repeat of that. That's great. But let's also not let them just punch it in every time. So,
I agree with you on that one. All right. Our third key to success is Stafford versus the blitz. Uh, Listen, we get to face Matthew Stafford, right? Get to face him, right? You got to be excited about these things, right? We get the opportunity to go out there and face Matthew Stafford, coming off a thumb injury that he suffered against Dallas. He's coming back. He's motivated. We have to be motivated to face him and stop him, right? It's a challenge. Rise to the challenge. This is not an easy challenge.
no.
Matthew Stafford is a good quarterback.
Yes.
In fact, he's a great quarterback against the blitz. In 2022, he had a total quarterback rating of 92.3 versus the blitz. That's versus 5 or more defenders rushing. In 2021, he led the league in quarterback rating versus the blitz with 131.4 rating, 16 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. This is critical that we have disciplined defense because we have to get home. We have to get pressures with only 4 rushers. Because once you add that 5th rusher, Matthew Stafford's going to find the hole in the defense. He's going to attack you right where you sent the guy to attack him, and he's going to win the majority of the time.
I'm now seeing why you don't want Devin Witherspoon blitzing at all this game. Yeah, look, I mean, Stafford's always been really good against the blitz. You go back to his days in Detroit. I mean, he's a good QB. He sees the field. I mean, that's one of the advantages of being a tall guy like he is. He can see those open lanes, and yeah, you let a guy run free, he's going to find that guy. Um, yeah, this is definitely a tall order for the Seahawks, especially I think Clint Hurts defense. Since Jamal Adams' return, the Seahawks have been dialing up the blitz a lot. We didn't get to see it quite as much during the Ravens game for many obvious reasons, not the least of which being that their quarterback is pretty dynamic no matter what he's doing against the blitz, whether that's running or passing. But yeah, we definitely need to find a way to get home or at least get pressure with just those front 4. Now we can change what side that pressure is coming on. We can change who's blitzing. You know, any and all of our linebackers are really, really good. when rushing the passer, whether we're talking about the outside guys with Boye Mafe. Shout out to him for setting a Seahawks record for 7 straight games with a sack. I'm really hoping he continues that here. Daryl Taylor's another guy on the outside. We've now seen Draymond Jones move out there on the edge. But Bobby and Jordan Brooks are both really, really good blitzers as well from the inside. So if that's where we want to bring the pressure, that's fine. Let's just make sure we keep guys back there in coverage too.
Yeah, don't forget about Derek Hall. I mean, he has some flashes where he really has shown why they took him so highly in this past draft. One of the advantages of the 3-4 defense is that, sure, we're going to send 3 guys, but if we send a 4th guy, you don't really know where he's coming from. So I guess in those packages, that's a benefit. Now, don't get carried away. I did not just praise the 3-4 because the Seahawks
you did.
the Seahawks play primarily out of the nickel. They play like 70% of their defensive snaps are out of the nickel. And this is that poorly designed 2-down lineman with 2 guys standing up that have 0 leverage. That defensive front. Occasionally when Daryl Taylor comes in, he'll put his hand down. But those guys need to get home. When we're in nickel, it has to be those 4 guys that are down on the line. When we're in kind of those base 3-4 sets, then yeah, let's kind of slant off one edge. Let's see if Mafe can get around. Let's let Mafe and Derek Hall or whoever's out there. I don't want Taylor doing this, but any of those other guys, let them go out and set an edge to run contain, and then let's blitz Jordan Brooks or Bobby Wagner through. Let's send that 4th guy. But when we're in those nickel, just get pressure with those down linemen, because I think if we start sending defensive backs and linebackers out of nickel, Matthew Stafford's going to carve us up, much like he did in week 1.
Yeah.
All right, our 4th key to success. It's still all about the ball. Last game was great. Geno Smith, 0 turnovers. The
First
games prior to that, the 4 games prior to that, 8 turnovers. So let's keep the trend going. It's all about ball. It's all about the ball security. Let's not give them extra chances to beat us. And we need to take care of the football. We need to make these drives end in a positive result, which in this case will be points, because I believe they're going to come at a premium in this game. So no turnovers. Let's keep it clean.
Yeah, look, I was just as surprised as anybody last week, and I think a lot of us were surprised watching this team still kind of struggle on offense, but not turn the ball over, because we've seen a pretty consistent pattern over 4 weeks, right? We struggle on offense, we start trying to throw the ball over the yard. Geno makes a bad decision, or there's just a great play by the defense that kind of turns the tide. That was definitely the deciding factor in this game, not turning that ball over. We kept the ball on offense. We moved down the field. We were able to get Jason Myers in position to kick. I think we had 5 field goals. This is a much better offense than the Commanders. And I think I can say that pretty confidently. Yes, the Commanders have plenty of talented people, but the difference between Sam Howell and Matthew Stafford might be one of the biggest gaps in the NFL as far as quarterback talent. Nothing against Sam Howell. I think he's doing a pretty good job this year, but Matthew Stafford is an all-timer. So yeah, we cannot give them more opportunities on offense. They are going to be hard to stop with what they've got already. We don't need to be letting them get the ball back from a turnover. So yeah, hopefully we see a clean game this week. Looking at you, Geno, I think you did a great job last week just throwing on time and letting your playmakers get the ball in their hands and do something with it. That 64-yard catch and run by Kenneth Walker being, I think, one of the better plays the Seahawks have done all season. Let's see more of that.
Yeah. And my testing metric for this one is I want to see 1 or fewer turnovers. It happens, right? Somebody's going to punch a ball out. Quarterback can drift a little bit, or a tipped ball at the line. Something can happen. So I'm going to give a little leeway and say 1 turnover could happen, and I would still count this as a success. but that's it. Just one.
I can't wait until we until we do the recap or the review, sir, because I think one turnover in this game is going to be devastating for the Hawks.
All right, our fifth key to success: balanced offense. I mean, you guys have heard me say this time and time again, probably every single preview show going back for the
At
last
least
2
once.
years. Here's what I want to see. I want it to be the metric that I believe is the most successful in the NFL, and that is a ratio of 55% pass, 45% run. And that's accounting for quarterback runs that originally started as pass plays. Those count into the pass numbers. So 55-45, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, look, the Seahawks have been pretty successful running the ball pretty much throughout the season. I mean, minus the Ravens game where we apparently just couldn't get anything going. We've had some pretty good success in the ground game. Zach Charbonnet really getting going these last couple of weeks, or sorry, last again taking out the Ravens game. But he has now outsnapped Kenneth Walker in the last 3 games, and I don't think that that's a mistake. I think that's been by design because we've been passing the ball more. But he's been effective on the ground. I mean, I think he averaged over 7 yards a carry this last game. He is a tough runner through the middle. I think when we get late in games, that's who you want to have out there. You want to have that guy that's going to be punishing this defense more and more. But we need to make sure we get our playmaker, and that's Kenneth Walker in this case, as many touches as we possibly can in this game. He just needs one, guys. I mean, we saw it against the Commanders. We've seen it before. Kenneth Walker will break a game open if you give him enough opportunities. It's going to happen.
Oh, for sure. If you look at distribution of carries, when Kenneth Walker gets 15 or more touches, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, don't quote me on all of these, the Seahawks' success trends in an upward direction. And a lot of that, you can tell, is on play calling. So, as Adam said, the Seahawks' rush offense, for the most part this season, has been pretty successful. You wouldn't believe it if you looked at our offensive play selection throughout the entire season. Now, Shane Waldron took a bit of heat, deservedly so, after the Baltimore game. He should have taken a bit more heat earlier in the season, but I digress. So,
he did on this podcast.
Always. So he took some heat, and some of that came from Pete Carroll. Even in press conferences, you could tell that Pete Carroll was not happy with the play selection, even so far as down to formations versus what the defense was showing. So you saw a bit of a different game plan against the Commanders. Was that a little bit more micromanaged by Pete Carroll to make sure that that game plan fit a more successful model? Or was that Shane Waldron actually learning from his mistakes? We're not sure yet. This game will be our first peek to see if that learning curve actually happened. Were the lessons learned from this stretch of pretty bad games? Did we learn from our mistakes, or are we destined to repeat those mistakes in the future?
Yeah, I think if you just go back and look at this, even just this season, we had 3 games in a row where we were scoring nearly 30 points in a game. That was weeks 2, 3, and 4. And during that time, we were hitting on, and Robbie even mentioned whether we were doing the preview or the recap, that we were hitting pretty close to those numbers. I think it was closer to 60-40 than it was 55-45, but we were getting our running backs opportunities. And that's how this offense is designed. That's how pretty much any offense in the NFL is designed. You need to have a run game to support your passing game, so that you can keep the defense honest. And if we're just going to let them sit back in coverage, as much as I think Gino can do it and can dice some defenses apart, we are not going to have the success that we need in order to win this game if we just rely on Gino's arm. We've got 2 amazing backs. I think Zach Charbonnet is an up and coming guy. Just go watch his game tape. He is a player. And Kenneth Walker, I still think, has probably the best vision of any second-year back in the league, if not all time, certainly in recent years. And he is just one play. I mean, there's tons of playmakers out there that are in the running back position. We've seen it a million times this year, whether it's Devin Achane or unfortunately Keaton Mitchell when we were down in Baltimore. But game breaking speed. I mean, speed kills. That's been a saying forever, right? Kenneth Walker with the ball in his hand. I think twice so far this maybe twice since last year he's hit the top or at least the top three game speeds. The man is runs like a bat out of hell when he has the ball in his hand. Give him his opportunities.
So going into give him his opportunities, let's look at these positions and see how they stack up against each other. Will he have an opportunity to do some damage? Let's take a look at these position groups and find out. So to compare these two teams, we got to look at quarterbacks first. Matthew Stafford, Geno Smith. Obviously, Matthew Stafford is a better quarterback, right? I want to give this to the Rams because he is a better quarterback, period. But he's coming off an injury. And this is his first game back after sitting a couple weeks. It's a thumb injury, and anybody who's ever even got a bruise on their thumb, let alone a sprain or a strain or a tweak somehow, right? I'm not sure the extent of what his injury was. Thumbs are killers, right? That's your do everything appendage on your hand. So how much is that thumb going to bother Matthew Stafford? I'm not sure. So I gave this a push, but definitely give credit where credit's due. And Matthew Stafford is a great quarterback.
Yeah, I was a little bit more simplistic when I was doing this. I guess I wasn't really factoring in all that stuff. I do think just head to head, Stafford is obviously a much more accomplished and maybe possibly talented quarterback. Not taking anything away from Geno Smith. I think he's proven to us that he belongs in this league, and he can lead this team to a winning performance. But yeah, I mean, Stafford is a generational talent. I mean, coming out of Georgia, he was far and away the best player in the draft, which is why the Detroit Lions took him. You can talk about the success he did or did not have in Detroit, but that wasn't on Matthew Stafford. The man is a generational talent. I'm positive he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I have to give this to the Rams. I think Matthew Stafford is just a better quarterback. I'm hoping that doesn't mean he's going to have a better game, but I think just if we're just looking at the player, Matthew Stafford definitely over Geno Smith.
Looking at his running back stable, I'm looking at our guys, right? We know what Kenneth Walker can do. Like you've said several times on this show today, he can take any play to the house. Charbonnet, always looking to punish somebody, running over guys. DJ Dallas is healthy now. He's been banged up the past couple weeks, still out there contributing. And then are we finally going to get to see our first glimpse of Kenny McIntosh? Right? We have a stacked stable of running backs. And yes, the Rams have decent running backs as well, but I'm going to give this to the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, spoiler alert. I also gave it to the Seahawks. I don't think this is particularly close. Darrell Henderson has had success in the Rams offense before, but this is a guy that they brought in from the streets. He was not on the Rams team at the beginning of the season. They've been dealing with injuries and also obviously trading Cam Akers to the Vikings. Even if they had a full healthy complement of their backs, and I do think that and now I'm spacing on his name, but Williams, their starting running back, is a really dynamic player, but he's not going to be playing this game. So I think this is an easy give for the Seahawks.
All right, looking at this wide receiver room, the Rams have some good wide receivers, and
We've already talked about them.
Yeah, we have some good wide receivers who are going to be part of the defensive game plan for Seattle. I gave Seattle the edge, though, even with Derek Young being out of this game. Having to rely on a D. Eskridge as that last wide receiver off the bench. I'm going to give this to Seattle. Now, if Lockett is inactive for this game, then it's a push, but it's a push leaning to the Rams in this matchup. So, in fact, I'm just going to say right there, if Lockett sits, then this matchup goes to the Rams.
Yeah, I'm actually giving it to the Rams anyway. And I'm only doing this because I think that we've seen this offense, especially our receivers, kind of struggle. I think they're getting better. Obviously, seeing JSN get more involved with the offense as the season has worn on has been really encouraging. but I still think that we're not seeing the connection between Geno and the receivers that we saw last year. Yes, we've seen a few really great throws, especially to Tyler Lockett, and some good long ones to DK as well, but just not that automatic chemistry that they've had. Uh, Cooper Cup, the last time he was playing with Matthew Stafford last year, I believe. Well, not last year, but the year, their Super Bowl year, broke pretty much every record for a wide receiver. He had the triple crown: most catches, most yards, most touchdowns. That is a dynamic duo that's going to be really hard to beat. I'm going to give this to them because I do think that now with Cooper Cup and Puka Nakua, this is going to be a very dangerous 1-2 punch from the Rams. And I know how I've seen the chemistry between Stafford and Cooper Cup. I haven't seen it this year from Geno. So slight edge leaning, and especially with Tyler Lockett questionable for this game, I've got to give this to the Rams.
All right, the tight end group, I'm giving to the Seahawks. I'm a big fan of our tight end group. Yes, they have a good tight end out there in LA, but I like what all three of our guys bring to the table, and so I'm going to give this to the Seahawks.
Yeah, look, you're talking about Tyler Higbee out there in LA, and Tyler Higbee is a NFL caliber tight end, and I don't think that I don't know if I can appraise him any more effusively than that. He can certainly play in this league. He's not dynamic. I mean, yes, he does everything on par with a professional level, but he doesn't have that one thing that really sets him apart. All three of our guys have one thing that sets them apart. Will Dissly is a beast in the blocking game and has just the softest hands of anybody that's that strong I think we've ever seen. Noah Fant is a yak monster when he gets going, and Colby Parkinson is the man's wingspan is unlimited. I honestly think that he could have a future in the NBA if he really wanted to. So yeah, I think this is a pretty easy give to Seattle.
And don't count Higbee out. He always seems to step up against the Seahawks. He's had multiple touchdowns in our recent meetings, so
we've had trouble with him.
Don't count him out. I have definitely won bets by putting a touchdown anytime scorer bets on Higbee, much as I hate to admit it. All right, looking at this offensive line, I want to give this matchup to the Seahawks because I want to give all of these matchups to the Seahawks, but I can't. So this one goes to LA. Our line did better last game. They weren't facing a caliber of defense they're going to be facing this week. And I like what the offensive line for the Rams has been doing lately. They had a little rough start to the season. The Rams have picked up momentum, and I think it's due to their fact that their offensive line is playing a little more cohesively. So looking at current trends, I'm going to say trend says LA gets this matchup.
Wow, you've kind of moved the needle for me. I think I originally I gave this matchup to the Seahawks, and I just think it's because when this offensive line has been clicking this year, and I think it's been clicking really well, especially when we've had our full complement of interior guys like we're going to have this week. Damian Lewis is healthy, Anthony Bradford's healthy, Phil Haynes is healthy. But you're right. I mean, they've had the same starting five in LA all season, and those guys are a cohesive unit. So I'm gonna say this one's a push. I do think when the Seahawks O line is at its best, it is a better offensive line. But right now, we are still not 100%. And even though we've got a lot of guys back on that interior, it's still going to be a question about the tackles. Even though I think the real pressure in this game on the offensive line is going to be up that middle, just because generally Aaron Donald is rushing from an interior position. Even when he's on DN, he's usually taking on a guard. But yeah, I'll say this is a push.
So there you go. Higher ceiling and lower floor. And that's why that disparity exists. All right. Defensive line. I'm not going against Aaron Donald, right? I like Leonard Williams. I like all of our guys. But it goes to LA because I'm not going to go against Hall of Fame Aaron Donald.
Yeah, look, I'll give you that point, but I'm going to just to say this: Aaron Donald is not a defensive line make. Yes, he is a dynamic player. He is an absolute Hall of Famer, and we have seen the damage that he can do against the Seahawks. But he is getting up there in years, getting up there in snaps. He's not the same guy that he was when he first burst on the scene into the league. I don't even think he's the same guy as he was last year, to be completely honest. We have the most stacked defensive line I think the Seahawks have ever had at this point in any season. It'd be even better, obviously, if Nwosu was still there, even though, yes, technically he's an outside linebacker. I can still kind of put him on the D line. But Leonard Williams, Draymond Jones, Mario Williams, sorry, um, and Jaron Reed. I'll take those four over one Aaron Donald.
Yeah, I see your point. I know that Aaron Donald's getting a little long in the tooth when it comes to football years,
Hmm.
but I liked Kobe Turner coming out in the draft. Um, I mean, Byron Young. I mean, technically he's a linebacker because they play a 3-4, I guess. Kind of that same role as you want to put Mafe and Nwosu both when we're talking about Nwosu when he's in the lineup. As a down lineman, I look at Byron Young the same way. But I don't know. If you look at the three down guys versus the three down guys, I can see where you have Seattle rated higher, but I've got to, like I said, I'm not going to go against Aaron Donald until I am proven wrong. So, with that said, Damian Lewis, this challenge is for you. You need to stop Aaron Donald, and then I will be a believer in both the Seahawks offensive line, but also I will lessen my expectations of the Rams defensive line.
Yeah, man, I'm hoping we're not just going to put Damian Lewis on an island against Aaron Donald. I hope we got somebody back there chipping, or maybe help out with either the center or a tackle. But yeah, but yes, Damian Lewis has got to come to play for sure.
All right, looking at the linebackers, I gave it to Seattle. I think the way that Jordan Brooks and Bobby Wagner are playing, PFF put out a stat this week that Bobby Wagner has the most coverage tackles for a linebacker without missing a tackle in the NFL. And I think it's like 30 or 36, something like that. And which is surprising because with the missed tackle problems that this team has had of late, I would have expected at least one to happen from a Hall of Famer, Bobby Wagner. But apparently it hasn't. So, at least in coverage. So, thank you, Bobby Wagner, for once again being the cream of the crop, the toast of the town, the number one in my heart and everyone's heart out there. So, I'm giving this one to the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby Wagner is, I think, in the conversation for greatest Seahawk of all time. And that's saying a lot when we've got guys like Cortez Kennedy, Steve Largent. We've got some Hall of Famers, but I think that Bobby is in that conversation, and he is on the verge of putting up his, I believe, is it 1100 tackle season, or maybe it's 12. But there's only two other linebackers in history that have done that. And I hope Bobby hits that this week. I think he's got 7 more tackles before he hits 100. I'd love to see him take that number in this game. Yeah, as long as Bobby Wagner's on the field, and honestly, even if he's not, Jordan Brooks and Boye and Mafe are a pretty great duo. I don't think there's a better 3 linebackers in this league.
All right, defensive backs. We have the most talented defensive backfield in the NFL, period, as far as true talent goes. Now, these guys have had some issues kind of learning to play together, and that's what's going to happen when you have young players. Jamal Adams came back, so between him and Diggs, they were kind of able to get the flow right, the communication going where it needs to. These guys are playing great. This will be a real test this week, kind of looking ahead to our gauntlet of very difficult foes coming up. This offense kind of gives us a projection if this defense, and especially the secondary, can step up and cover some pretty darn good elite receivers that they have here on the Rams. But I gave this matchup to the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. Talent wise, I think this may be the most. I mean, I guess I can be wrong there, right with you, and just say this is the most talented backfield in the NFL right now. It's certainly the most talented backfield, at least on paper, that the Seahawks have ever had, and I'm including the Legion of Boom era. Not taking anything away from those guys. Again, Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, 3 of the greats in Seahawks history. But we have 3 first-round picks in this secondary. We've got three or two Pro Bowlers or two All Pros and one and I think three Pro Bowlers in this secondary. Yeah, this is a pretty stacked secondary. The Seahawks. I will say one caveat though, and that is this. I give it this matchup to the Seahawks if the secondary will wrap up and tackle guys instead of trying to lay the lumber. Look, gone are the days of Cam Chancellor just shouldering guys to the ground. None of you guys, none of the Seahawks defensive backs are that kind of player. Yes, Jamal Adams can lay the lumber, but I would rather see Jamal Adams put on a great form tackle behind the line than watch him smack a guy only for that guy to bounce off and or even just smack the guy. Period. But of late, it's been hitting the guy, and that guy's been able to turn out of that and get 5-6 extra yards. So Jamal, just wrap up, bring the guy to the ground. I will applaud you then. But yeah, as long as this secondary wraps up, it is far and away the better secondary.
All right. Moving on to our predictions for the game. Adam?
This one's tough, man. I mean, look, the Rams have been kind of on a cold streak as far as offense goes. I mean, obviously this is without Matthew Stafford, but the last game that they played was against a fairly abysmal. I don't want to say maybe not abysmal, a not too lauded defense in the Green Bay Packers, and they were only able to put up 3 points. Yes, they've got Stafford back. That's obviously a huge deal. I don't see the Seahawks holding them to 3 points, not with that pair of receivers and Stafford back there. I'm hoping that we can keep them below their high points this season. I'm going to say the Seahawks are able to pull off this win. And yes, some of that is a little bit of projection, but I think if we can just stick to the formula we had last week, take the points when we're in position to do it, which means we're going to let Jason Myers kick the ball a lot this game. I think we can still come out with a win. I'm going to say the Seahawks pull this out 26-21.
All right. So my prediction for this game is Seattle 27, LA 24. But
so much for a defensive game.
Well, I think Myers wins it on a game-winning field goal.
I'm okay with that.
So those are my two predictions. I have 27-24 and then Myers game-winning field goal. Adam, do you have any final thoughts?
2 weeks in a row. Look, we've gone over most of this stuff. We've seen what this team can be when it's doing the basics correctly, wrapping up, running the ball, taking what the defense is giving you. We've also seen what this team does when they're trying to push too hard. We have the players. We don't need to be pushing like this. I think we have the talent and the personnel to compete with any team in this league. And I think we need to go out and prove it this week. The Rams are still dangerous. They're still a competitive team, and they always come to play when they play the Seahawks. Let's put a statement out there. Let's win this game in LA. Let's say, hey, we are who we look like we are, and that is a team that is going to be competing for the division title.
Yeah, my thoughts are that this isn't technically looking at the stats, looking at percentages to make the playoffs. This is not a must win. But I think for momentum, I think mentally, this is a must win. Because you can go into this game thinking, okay, we win this game in the Rams, we can lose the next 4 and then just beat the lesser teams at the end of the season, and we'll still make the playoffs. But you take that mentality, and that's what happens, right? We beat the Rams, we go lose the next 4. But if that was your mentality coming into this run, you're going to lose the game against the Cardinals week 17. You're going to miss the playoffs altogether. So you go into it. This is playoff football, right? We need to go into this with the mentality of we lose and we're done. So this is a must win when it comes to getting ready for what's ahead. And this is kind of the mock playoffs right now for the Seahawks. And it starts here with round 1. So let's put it that way. Let's think about it. This is our round 1 matchup against the Rams. Let's go out and take care of business. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Seahawks, the podcast for fans like you. We really enjoy coming out and talking about the Seahawks with all of our fans, with any Seahawk fan who wants to come on. Open invitation. Hit us up on Twitter at LT Seahawks Pod. and we'll see if we can work out a schedule to get you on the show. Thank you to everybody listening in the audio only podcast world. Hopefully, we make your drive to work or family road trip a little more enjoyable. And for those of you watching on YouTube, thank you very much. Please do us a favor, help out the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you like the show, give us a thumbs up. It really helps out the algorithm. Once again, thank you. And as always, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.